Hi. 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 Yo, what's up, guys? It's the Insane Gang Freak here. Uh, so, um, obviously, because it's getting closer and closer to E3, a lot of fucking rumors and quote unquote leaks coming out and speculation. And there is a particular leak that this video was jumping off of, but I'm not going to talk about the leak itself because if it's going to come out, it's going to come out, especially supposedly how the rumor works. There's no point in going too much in detail about it if it's going to be true, because I just want to take a part of that and have a conversation. And the part of it, you can tell from the title, is Pokemon and its weird obsession with remakes. I honestly don't think Pokemon really needs to do remakes anymore. Like, we don't need remakes anymore, because remakes kind of come off as a cop out. It's like, oh, every generation for the most part we have to do one mainline game and then one remake and maybe like a third or fourth version of like that generation's game. But wouldn't it make more sense to just make another game or make like a legit game? And see, because the biggest issue, and this kind of also goes into the idea that we need some sort of ultimate edition of the game, or that the games need to be in a new region, or need to have a bunch of new Pokemon. Pokemon is a strong enough IP and has a lot of fucking different types of characters and Pokemon that you can do a bunch of shit with. So it always drove me nuts that every time we went to a generation, we did some gyms, we got some badges, we fought a few characters, fought a new organization, did the Elite Four, and then bing, bom, boom, we're out of there, and on to the next one. It feels like all the characters that you've created, all those unique designs and shit, got wasted. Because it wasn't even until like around Gen 4 and 5 that they, well actually, to be fair, it's more like Gen 3. Gen 3 kind of started it, Gen 4 kind of continued it, Gen 5 kind of went full on with it, where they started using all these fucking characters you created. Because I've said it before, why the fuck are you making all these cool ass designs, giving them all these different quirks and personality traits, and you only see them for the point in which you're in the town? That's the one thing I love about Gen 5. Gen 5 tried to keep every gym leader relevant in some shape, form, or fashion. And even if it couldn't keep all of them, it kept way more than the other games do. That's why it's always such a shame when we get. That was probably one of the weakest aspects of X and Y. You introduced these gym leaders, and these gym leaders were just kind of like, fuck people. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, fuck boys. Like, oh, here's your old man character cutting that grass with his shears. Here's your psychic type gym leader who's like this older woman. Here's your pretty girl who's a fairy type gym leader. And I'm like, fuck, none of these characters do anything. And I feel like maybe that's the problem. They're so focused on the game itself and following that formula that they don't allow themselves to step outside of the box. Because the one thing that would help them step out of the side of the box is to utilize the characters they have. That's what I'm saying. You could redo another game in Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, or Alola, and you would still have enough material for a brand new game. You could put it in the future. You could put it at the same time. You could do it from a different character's perspective. I think Pokemon as an RPG suffers in one primary area. And granted, it has its other issues, but the one area I really want to focus on is its character and story. You underutilize the fuck out of these two things to the point where it's like, that's half of the reason why people like playing RPGs. Is for the characters I'm playing as and the story I'm telling. Because people want to know what the fuck happens next. That's part of the appeal for Sun and Moon specifically. Sun and Moon was one of the better. I think Sun and Moon and Gen 5 are some of the best games in that regard. Because it, although had its additions to gameplay and changing mechanics, it also pushed the characters in the story to why some of Gen 5 has some of the more memorable gym leaders. Because they do shit. Elsa will always stick in my mind from Gen 5 because of the moment she had with Bianca and her dad. That's cool shit. A lot of these gym leaders have cool designs because maybe the gym leader is inherently strong but have these stories to tell. Why do you think people still enjoy the anime to some degree? Because it fleshed out these characters that weren't really fleshed out in the games. Like like Flannery, for example. It's casually mentioned originally in Hoenn that she's a new gym leader starting out, kind of like what they did with Faulkner. Who was another one? What they kind of did with Charon in Black and White too. That whole I'm a new gym leader and I'm kind of getting used to the way these things work. And it's slightly expressed in the original game. It's a little bit more expressed in the remake, but it's the most expressed in the anime. This is one of the other things I wish that Pokemon would do is add in side quests around the gyms and shit. Because it's obvious that they're trying to change the way Pokemon is structured. I mean, Alola was probably the biggest departure they've done in a while, and that still wasn't that too far away from what we were used to doing. And the reason why is because I think they realized that the shit's kind of getting stale and we need to shake things up. Part of that would help if you made me give a fuck about any of these gym leaders. These people are literally dudes and girls with badges that I just need to grab from them. I need to beat them in a fight and that's it. Some of these fights would be so much more impactful if you had me do a few side quests based around them and then had me kind of develop a relationship with them. So when I fought them, it wasn't just a simple, I'm just here to take your badge and move the fuck on. It was kind of like we became friends and now we're just trying to see which one of us as friends are stronger. Especially if some of these gym leaders were reoccurring, where they came back in certain other arcs based in later on in the game. It's like, oh shit. Like for example, this is a personal thing. You have a fire type gym leader and a water type gym leader in Hoenn, right? You have Wallace or Roland if you're playing Emerald and Flannery. And you have Team Matma and Team Aqua. And this whole mentality of how the land is better or the water or the sea is better and we need to take it back from each other and shit. If Flannery, especially because her gym is right next to, what is it, Mount, it's not Mount Coronet, is it? Fuck, what is the name of that mountain? I forget the name of the mountain. But the mountain in Gen 3 in Hoenn, she's right next to it, right there with the ash area too. And it's like, why not have her travel with you? That's the other thing I kind of wish. We had travel companions. Because I enjoy the journey, but some of the things that help people stay invested in the game, and obviously the gameplay and mechanics are important. That shit needs to change too. But as an RPG, it always tripped me out that Pokemon as an RPG lacks that so much. That the most exciting thing about Gen 5 and even Gen 6 and 7 were that they were starting to add all these story elements, especially because Pokemon has so much lore. You can base fucking stories just around the Pokemon themselves. Trevenant is out here stealing the souls of children to create what the fuck is his pre-evolution's form name? I forget Trevenant's pre-evolution's name. Damn it. It's the same thing, or like Drifblimp stealing kids. And maybe it ties into one of those Hexmanic girls. That's the other thing. You get all these random fucking trainers you fight, and it's just models sitting there going, well, I'm just here to throw a Pokeball and to give you some training. It'd be cool if maybe like 2 or 3 of them became reoccurring characters you kept seeing throughout the game. That way, when you got to the end and you start, it also works for post-game content. When you're dealing with some of these other characters and dealing with their problems or shit that's going on after you've beaten the game. You mix it in with some of the villain stuff. It's kind of cool. We have so much material to work on. You don't need a new game or a remake for that matter. Just make them new games that happen to take place in certain regions. Doesn't even have to be the same. You've already introduced this concept of alternate dimensions and different timelines. Why not have certain games take place in certain timelines and certain games take place in other timelines and create stories based around that timeline? Because I'm really fucking hoping that Pokemon evolves, no pun intended, because it trips me out. It trips me out that we're still struggling in this basic shit. And it's particularly because I think Game Freak thinks that they're stuck in this mindset that they have to keep creating new Pokemon and have to keep creating new regions and shit. And they're creative as fuck. I don't want that to get twisted. Gen 5 was creative as fuck. I had my issues with Gen 6 as a game. Gen 7 was creative as fuck. But you're eventually going to run out of areas. So it doesn't make any sense to keep... And like I said, there's no point in creating a main game, then creating a better version of that game, than creating a remake of an older generation. Leave that shit alone, because the remakes don't mean as much now, because I know they're coming. They always come. Give us a break from that shit and make new games in some of the older regions with new context and stories. You can even add on to certain regions that don't have a lot of shit in them. Hint, hint, Kalos, because Kalos is kind of a terrible ass region. That was the issue with Sun and Moon, where you could tell Sun and Moon had the potential to be fucking amazing, and it was just like, we didn't have the time. I'm like, yeah, because you sat there and you focused on a Gen 3 remake that was, I would argue that it's better to play the original version of Gen 3 than the remake. I mean, the remake adds stuff that I like, but like logistically, I would tell you to play the old version of Gen 3 to get the full experience. Like, play Emerald or Ruby and Sapphire, and you'd be fucking perfectly fine. That's just me, though. I want Pokemon to grow in all areas. They've kind of nailed the mechanics at this point. I think most people's issue with Pokemon in general is that it's gotten too repetitive, because they stick themselves into the same formula of doing things a certain way, and that they underutilize all these fucking characters. You have a bunch of fucking characters. It'd be cool to where I can jump into a generation and not know what the fuck I'm getting. I could jump into a new Pokemon game that take place in maybe Unova and see fucking, I don't know, Volkner or fucking Maylene. Because you have all these characters who have all these different types of abilities and personalities and shit. And you have time. You've introduced concepts that would totally work for new games based in the same regions under different contexts. Maybe you can have and you can still do the two versions. Like, for example, you could take going to Sinnoh, right? In an alternate timeline. You have two different timelines. One is the Mega Universe, is the Mega timeline. The other one is the non-Mega timeline. So maybe the non-Mega timeline involves Z moves and the other one doesn't. Like, the other one just has, especially because you don't know when in history each of these regions take place. I'm assuming that it's pretty chronological up until like Gen 6, but I'm not sure. I don't want to get into that right now. But I don't know. That's just my thought process, that you don't need to keep forcing yourselves to do all this. And I get it. At the end of the day, Pokemon and video games in general are a business. So although they care about this kind of stuff, they're also focused on making money. And what makes money? New characters to promote, new plushies to make, new shit to sell. I just think maybe it wouldn't hurt to go back to the basics and expand on the shit you already have, because it just feels like a bunch of wasted potential. Because some of these characters I would truly fucking enjoy a lot more, and Pokemon would become so much better of a franchise if it would just push the aspects of it that don't get pushed. Because the gym leaders are like the weakest aspect of any Pokemon game. And not because they're bad, but because they're so underutilized and they're just bodies. It's the same. They don't even utilize the Elite Four in their own regions games. I think usually the champion's been getting pushed, like in Gen 4. Actually, no, I'm lying. It's pretty much every generation. Like Gen 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They push the EVA Villains leader, the champion, maybe one or two of the gym leaders, and maybe one or two of the Elite Four members. You have all these, push them all. Or save some of them for main game and some of them for post game. Kind of like what Gen 6 did with, was it Flava or Flavia? Where it was like, oh, well, you're a part of, what the fuck is Team Flare? It took me a minute to remember the fucking name of the evil organization. You're a part of Team Flare. And that was like the only character that got pushed. And I was like, damn it. Especially because of how, especially if you're going to still make, obviously this is a children's game, so they're still going to be kind of easy. Let me at least enjoy their characters and the stories you have to tell with them. Because you got so much material, it doesn't make sense to keep dropping the ball like this. I don't know, who the fuck am I? I'm just a fanboy. That's just something I wanted to get off my chest. That I think Pokemon is just underutilizing certain aspects of itself. And I think they're starting to learn, because Gen 7 and even Gen 6 and Gen 5, 6, and 7 definitely had more of a story focus going through the games. And I'm hoping they learn from these experiences and keep pushing that. That's part of the reason why I like Gen 7 so much, because Gen 7 finally made me like a good chunk of the characters. They're still doing that thing where only some of them get pushed and some of them don't. Like fucking, I think the standouts for Gen 7 will probably be what? Nanu, Kukui, Acerola. And to give them credit where credit's due, Kukui is like the first professor, probably next to maybe Juniper, and that's only because she was different, that really kind of stood out in my mind for being different. Because Kukui was on some next level shit. He's literally the best professor just in comparison because either A, the other professors are old, or B, they don't do shit. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. What do you think Pokemon needs to do in the future games? Let me know. Life's a game. Play to win. And I will catch you guys later.